Hello there, all you amazing people. I feel I need to chime in a little bit on this one here, and I forgot to turn off auto exposure. So the turmoil that Red Hat is in right now is nothing new. Red Hat is not your friend. SUSE is not your friend. Canonical is not your friend. Any Linux or open source project software and stuff like that rely on, it's not because they rely on money. Let me put it another way. Projects and companies, when they reach a certain size, the main focus becomes the project, the company. So that's making as much money as possible, expanding as much as possible, having as much control as possible, and etc, etc, etc. And it's been like that for years. So let's just use Red Hat as an example here. Red Hat has done a lot of kind of not so good things. So when they started to take Red Hat, or not Red Hat, CentOS under their wings, they made sure that they had quite a lot of control over it. I think they had, like, don't quote me 100% of this, but I think they have the majority of voting power on what was going on with CentOS. They put CentOS under their wing so they could control it. That was why they did it. They saw CentOS kind of taking over Red Hat. A lot of people preferred CentOS over Red Hat. So what do you do? What is a good market strategy? To take that under your wing and control it. That makes you look less of a bad person. What happens some few years later when CentOS was really overtaking Red Hat, in user base because of this here? They killed it off and did CentOS Stream instead. This is only the beginning. This is only the beginning. Red Hat is only the beginning. You will see more and more projects, companies doing stuff like that. They say that you will be like, that's what Microsoft would do. This is what Apple would do. You see Google doing it towards open source. Google is doing a lot of shady shit to open source. Why is that? Because that's how business is being done, especially big business. So when open source and Linux become big business, we get people that goes in and do big business practices. If you don't believe me, I will guess my fat butt that a lot of you guys and girls right now are gamers, or at least have gamed. And I will also guess that some of you are like kind of my age, or in the 30s to mid 30s and up. You probably remember gaming from the 80s and 90s. It was kind of where Linux is right now. There was a lot of money to be made, but they were fucking good. When you bought the game, you owned the game, you got everything with the game. If there was an expansion or an add-on, you went out and bought that. You had it in physically, in your room or in your apartment. It was yours. You didn't have all of this pre-order and, like a day one patch that was fucking bigger than the fucking game, because we didn't have that good internet back then. Gaming was fun, amazing, and yes, people made money on gaming. But then look today. What do we have today? Microtransactions, pre-orders, day one releases of games that don't work, games being released that barely works because they will still make money because of the name. Gaming has now become a stock speculation, basically, for most gaming developers. How little work can we do to make the most amount of money and make our customers happy? That's the future of Linux, just like it is with Windows and Mac OS. What can we do to make the most amount of money from our customers? That is going to be the future of open source and Linux. If you don't believe me, again, look at gaming as one of the recent experiments where that happens, or instances where that happens, where it became so much business, and there will be people are able to make so much money that the guys, look at who is controlling gaming companies today, both small and big. A lot of times it's someone with a MBA or what the fuck is called, bachelor's degree in economics or business. If you go back to like the mid 2000s and down, people owning and controlling gaming developer companies were developers and gamers. They were developers that also liked games, so they had like a development background, a PhD in development and stuff like that. Nowadays, most of people that have control over game companies, big and small, don't care about games. They have no interest in games. For them, it's just a mean to make money because gaming became big business. How many of, well, look at SUSE. I don't know about the current, but the past CEO of SUSE, the amazing woman, she was not an open source advocate. She was not a developer. She was running OpenSUSE that then controls to some degree and sponsor OpenSUSE. She was a businesswoman. I think the current CEO is a businesswoman. I still think the CEO of Red Hat is a developer. But go and look at how many of your open source projects and open source businesses are run by developers. And you will see that, not now, but you will still see a big deal or a good portion of those being run by business people. And when that happens, when business people, they start to become the controlling factors and the alpha omegas in a field, that's when it starts to go downhill, because a business person don't give a fuck about your freedom, your open source and all that shit. They care about how much money can they make and can they make for their shareholders. If a company has too many business advisors and in their board of directors, which I suspect Red Hat has, that's what's going to be the majority of concern. Again, if we go back to gaming, because it's one of the most recent examples that in recent history, most of the really good games, the really respected games, the really fan-favorite games out there, most of them are being run by companies or projects where it's developers and gamers making games for gamers. Rarely do you see that the CEO and lead developer and lead designer and blah 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 is some bastard's degree in business administration or whatever the fuck they are called nowadays. It's a nerd, you know, that has like maybe a bachelor's degree or a PhD in programming, AI or something like that, but it's a hardcore gamer making games for games. That is the most successful games made like that. Minecraft is a good example. There's plenty of examples out there where games was great, or when they were great, was in the area of the game when majority of people and the people in the decision-making positions were also gamers and developers. Why do you think, you know, Bethesda is the way it is? Because most of the things that's being done on the decision-making level is not done by gamers. This is going to be the same for us beloved Red Hat, or not Red Hat, sorry, OpenSUSE and Linux. We will get more and more people coming into our field that don't give a fuck about Linux and open source. And then they will look at it, how can we monetize the living shit out of this? For all the hate Canonical gets, Canonical is actually one of the best money-making companies out there. They still kind of listen to their people. They still kind of don't do that many fucking shit. Like, SUSE and Canonical are not doing as much crazy shit as these guys have done for years over here. And they did it before Red Hat was, before IBM bought them, by the way. And there is a look at how GNOME, the mentality of the GNOME developers and the way that they are towards the community. You can love the GNOME desktop. I'm kind of a little bit like, I don't like it, but I don't hate it. But look at how they drive and run the GNOME development team and stuff like that. That's run like a business. That's run with, we know what you want. It's run like Apple to some degree. Why they get away with it right now is because the people that are in control of GNOME are still nerds and developers and Linux enthusiasts. Wait 5-10 years if Linux and desktops is even around at that time, and we're not all running around with tablets in our faces. Imagine GNOME becoming so big that some fucking business dude is coming in and saying, you know what? I can do so you can do more with GNOME. I can help you make money or get fund funding. It's just another way of making money. I can help you get other people's money so you can develop more GNOME. That sounds like a fucking dream coming true. That's where it comes. That's where it starts. You want to expand your project, so you get some business dude in that knows what they are doing, or do that, which you should, of course. The problem is they start to listen too much to them because they see all the nice things they can give them, and then companies and projects, they get blinded for the most part by all of these nice things. Oh my God, we can actually get paid really well for what we're doing. Oh my God, our little baby is actually now making money, even though it's a non-profit, but those money that they make is now being funneled into more developers that makes the project being able to do more work faster and better and stuff like that. We need more business people. Then we need more business people. Then those business people become the majority of power holders in that project. And what do business people do? They hire more business people because they want to make more money. That's kind of like high level what's going on with Linux and open source at the moment. And I know what you'll say, fuck you, man, it's open source, we can just fork it. Yeah, so if you fork, let's just say Red Hat or GNOME, you have 100 developers. Do you honestly think you can compete with fucking GNOME or Red Hat that probably, let's say they have 10,000 developers and access to millions of dollars? They will outcompete you with development power and buying power. And again, that buying power don't necessarily mean that they are putting it into advertising. It's just like they can get better equipment so they can do the development faster. They can hire more developers. They could hire advertisement and so on that the little fork here can't do. Just because you can fork something, that's not like a bulletproof thing. That's also why most forks don't pan out. Because when you're forking something, you're becoming something new, so you don't have the brand recognition to begin with. You probably don't even have the same manpower to begin with. And then you're being left behind because people don't really know you. You can't have to start over and see, I'm a 100% compatible, blah, 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 blah. And then the people that you forked over, they will just continue, you will just be replaced. The people that the fork took with them will be replaced, and they will probably be replaced by twofold. So they are out competing a lot of forks with notoriety, development power, and access to funding. That's why a lot of them don't pan out, and also the direction that a lot of forks takes is just not what the customers want. So just because you can fork something, that don't mean much. Especially when we're talking big things like Red Hat, Canonical, SUSE, and stuff like that. Just look at a lot of the alternative or forks or derivative of SUSE and Red Hat and Ubuntu. They don't make near as much money or have near as much user bases as the parent distro and company have. Anything based on Ubuntu is still making more money than all of them. Ubuntu is still having more users than all of them. I know Mint is big, but Mint is not bigger than Ubuntu. That's how it's going to be done. So what I'm hoping to say to you guys, and don't get me started on Google, by the way, but what I'm hoping this will do is it will spark a little bit of, oh my God, in your brain. A little bit of we need to open our eyes. And what I mean by that is that for years, decades, the Linux community have kind of closed its eyes to all of these small little not so good things that open source projects and companies have done because, well, they are open source, they are giving us cool shit. They are not Microsoft and Apple, while doing exactly the same things that Microsoft and Apple are doing, sometimes worse. Like the most recent example is Valve. Valve as a company should be the epitome of example of everything any open source and Linux fanboy and fangirl stands for. Because Valve is doing everything that those Linux people hate about Microsoft, Windows, and proprietary software. There's just one caveat. They're doing Proton, they're giving you Steam on Linux, and they're doing the Steam Deck. So because of those three nice things, they are closing their eyes to all of the other bad shit craziness they do. What Valve officially is doing is taking a proprietary store onto Linux so they can own, monetize, control, collect, probe Linux users. And here we are bitching about Snap packages because the Snap Store technology is closed source. But it's okay for Valve to basically allow them to run Steam, where you don't own anything on Steam. If you think you own your game on Steam, you don't. You're renting them. And they are taking more telemetry than Windows and Mac OS probably combined, and data. They know probably more about than Apple and Microsoft. The next one that knows more about is probably Google. But then again, why don't we bitch about Google? Well, they are using Android, which a lot of people regard as Linux, and we have Chrome OS, and they're doing a lot of open source projects. So because they're giving us these nice things, we close our eyes to all of the massive amount of bad shit that they're doing. And then we get this. And the whole picture is that why is Linux expanding so much? Why are we getting so much development into Linux? We are getting that from big, massive company, multi-million, billion-dollar company. With them doing that, that means we are now becoming reliant on them. That also means they're getting more and more power because they are giving us development effort, they're giving us money or sponsoring projects and so on and so on. So that means that they can slowly but steady make more and more influences into those places. The bigger a project becomes, the bigger a company becomes. Forks and alternatives cannot outcompete. A really good example is Adobe Photoshop. We have GIMP, we have Quixel, we have Affinity Design, we have so many alternatives. PaintShop Pro and whatnot. What do everyone talk about? Photoshop. That's where Red Hat will become one day. That's where GNOME and KDE and VLC and SUSE and all of that shit will become at one point. And Canonical could become at one point. Unless they start to knock my money and default, of course. And at that time, and Red Hat is kind of there. Red Hat, I think, is the biggest one. Maybe not in avenue, or revenue, what they earn, but they're the biggest one in size when it comes to not employees, but people working for them. And they're probably also maybe not bigger, but close to as big as Ubuntu on the server side. Ubuntu's winning on the desktop, but on the server side, Red Hat is maybe, if not the biggest, it's close to the biggest, where Ubuntu server may take the cake there. So they can kind of sit on that monopoly control. Mark my words, and I've been saying this ever since I started this channel, that Red Hat is probably the worst open source company to ever exist. But mark my words, this is just the beginning. You will probably see more and more non-profit organizations starting to do stuff. Look at Mozilla. They wanted to fucking censor political debate because they didn't agree with one party. Open source company. They wanted to censor the internet. Luckily enough, they didn't get away with it. You will see more of this coming up. Why? Money, power, and influence. You may say, well, you don't pay for open source, like you don't pay money for the distribution and stuff like that. No, but they get money in other avenues, or else they can't, function. You right now may not get it, pay the money. But if you're not buying for something, you're the product. You get what I'm saying here? So either your data is giving them money, or other technologies like service agreement, specific tools that they can sell to make your life easier, more integrated in a business environment, and so on. So that's where they make the money. So the bigger the user base is, the bigger argument they have for a potential new customer to actually choose them or another one. They're like, oh, well, all of these people are using our product. Why would you not do it? We must be the best ones when all of these people are using it. So just because Red Hat is free or Ubuntu is free, it's all the add-ons they make money on, and you are helping them making money of those add-ons by just being a user, because you become part of the statistic. You're part of the, look how many users we have. Look how many people are utilizing our systems. So that must mean that they are good systems, even though you may use Red Hat or Ubuntu and stuff like that for other things than this specific thing, but you are still part of the statistic. So of course they're giving you nice things, so they can make money and all of the rest. This is just the beginning. See you all later. Bye-bye.